Hi everyone, and welcome back to this project. Today we're going to be talking about episode 8. To start off, the title. There's something about some of the titles that I just really find, I don't know, it's a bit romantic, but then there's this huge juxtaposition with like the tragedy behind these titles. The first one was Midnight on the Firing Line, and that was just, that title was, you know, it just kind of takes you places in your mind that's a bit more tragic than it really seems. But anyway, going on. So, and the sky full of stars. I think for this episode, I'm just gonna free associate. I don't really have my thoughts really lined up. There's a lot of, while I was watching the episode, there were a lot of different things that came to mind, but not completely episode related, but just sort of the things that triggered for me. So I think it's gonna be more like a psychoanalytic process as I talk about this episode. Okay. So the title, and the sky full of stars, going back to this again, because I know that I just regressed or digressed. I'm all over the place. I am so sorry. After I watched the episode, I thought about the title and I just kind of thought a couple of different things. One is, here are all these like spaceships fighting the Minbari on the firing line, and their destruction as they like crumble. Like I had this visual imagery on how like they ended up being stars as they disintegrated into space. That was one imagery I had. The other was just the thought that how after this huge fight, and when everything is all said and done and everyone, you know, perishes in the war, in this battle, that the night sky lit up with all these stars, it just seems like nothing really even happened. And it just kind of goes back to the peace that it was. And I think that's interesting because now we're talking about memories in this episode. And for Commander Sinclair, he didn't really have like a memory of exactly what happened in his mind. Like there was this 24-hour period that was completely blank. And it's almost like, it's like after everything was said and done and he blacks out for that 24-hour period, all that was left with this was a sky full of stars. It's an interesting episode for me because I couldn't really formulate things. Like I said, it's like just a culmination of all these things in my mind that I just kind of want to say all at once, and I can't really formulate it in this coherent manner for some reason. Okay. It's almost like my own memories of like things are all kind of like garbled up in there and it just wants to come out. Mm-hmm. It's a very fascinating thing, like what this episode did to me. As much as it feels really organized in my own head, it's all like, you know, it's all over the place and it's taken all these different directions for me. So I don't think I'm going to be as very organized and coherent. I'm going to jump around a little bit. One of the things I really want to talk about was the line that Commander Sinclair said about lying.
He's lying. I can tell.
Everyone lies, Michael. The innocent lie because they don't want to be blamed for something they didn't do. And the guilty lie because they don't have any other choice. Find out why he's lying. The rest will take care of itself.
I pondered about this for quite some time because I think it really is circumstantial, and I do believe it's happened. I mean, it does happen. So with regards to the innocent lying because they have because they don't want to be blamed, typically the innocent don't lie. They actually tell the truth because it's like the one time they could actually tell the truth and have a favorable outcome. And the guilty lie, and he says that the guilty lie because they have no choice. Well, there is a choice. The problem is that they anticipate an unfavorable outcome. So, you know, I was thinking about the concept of lying and like why we lie. We lie because, one, it alleviates anxiety, and two, we are expecting, or we're trying to manipulate the circumstances or the situation in order to have a more favorable outcome. So we lie because we want to make sure that whatever the consequences we face are good ones, which is, you know, so as you can see, lying is often reinforced because when we lie, we sometimes do get away with murder. We get away with things that, you know, we don't end up getting blamed for even when we actually did it. So that's the function of lying. And of course, there are different types of liars and different types of lying, but I won't get into that. I just thought that, you know, what Commander Sinclair said was interesting. So keeping this in mind, well, why would then, you know, why would the innocent then lie? It's not very typical, unless they don't want to be misunderstood because the situation just seemed way too coincidental to actually like fit in nicely, so then maybe they may lie. But like I said, it's the one time they could tell the truth and it's justified, well, most times logically, right? Now he says that, you know, the guilty lie because they have no choice. No, they do have a choice. It's just that they may not find the outcome favorable. Although there are times, of course, when we do admit our truth. I think in some situations, honesty is more revered over lying and trying to get away with it. So it really does, you know, is based on circumstance. But then if that happens, then you probably will end up telling the truth more often because then it's reinforced. So in this episode, Commander Sinclair gets kidnapped somehow. I don't know how. I thought I missed something, but he gets kidnapped by this guy we don't know the name of, right? We don't know the name of this guy, right? I don't know his name.
Who?
The guy that kidnapped him, and you know.
Oh, they're like night 1 and night 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
night 1.
Okay. The guy with beautiful teeth.
Christopher?
He had a really.
Or the dude with the long hair?
The one that was interrogating him with the mind probe thing.
Yeah, Christopher. He's wonderful. Don't get me started.
Okay. So he's night 1, I suppose?
Yes, night
Okay.
1.
So night 1 kidnaps him, and they're pumping him full of all this like medications, right? All these psychotropics, right? And psychotropics basically are a class of medications that just alter your mental state. That's what it simply means. So basically all medications in psychiatry are considered psychotropics. It's a very general name. So he's pumping him full of all these psychotropics. The first thing I thought of, right, and like the more they're increasing his dose in order to induce this state where they can get more out of him and for him to be able to recall his memories. The thoughts that came to mind were one, I wonder what this episode was like for Michael O'Hare, who has a diagnosis of schizophrenia. That was first and foremost on my thought, like what was it like for this actor to film this where he's actually having hallucinations? He's acting out on these hallucinations in the show, but in real life he's also experienced hallucinations.
This has never been discussed anywhere until this moment. Into the first year of working with Michael, I began to notice problems. good guy, good actor, but there were things happening that I couldn't account for in behaviorally. And about halfway through, I asked him to come in, we talked, seemed fine, back to work. And end of the day, we talked to him again when he was more tired. And he began to manifest symptoms of psychosis, where he talked about looking for messages to him in the papers, that the FBI was following him, that he was getting secret messages in television programs. And I realized he was heading for a psychotic break. My psychology background came into play. And I didn't know what to do. Because when he was, most of the time he was fine. But every so often under stress, out would come delusional behavior. What do I do? What do I do? My first show, first season, if I tell Warners about this, they'll pull the plug. I finally decided I'm going to tell Warners. I have to. I talked to Michael. I said, we need to get you. We don't have the power to force you to get medication, but I can stop this so you can get the care you need. He says, don't do it. Don't do it. I can't be responsible for the show shutting down, everyone losing their jobs. I can get through this. If you help me, I can get through this. And I said, if you really want a chance, I'll give you that chance. But we're going to assign someone to work with you and keep an eye on you. The moment the needle goes into the red, we're pulling the plug. Understand that? He said, I understand. I will work with you. We'll make this happen. And he held on by his fingernails for that season. I could see the strain it was taking on him, the toll it was taking, but he held on.
I just was really curious, like if that affected him or impacted him in any way, or maybe perhaps, because he knows what that experience is, that he was able to sort of play that role a little bit more
Authentically.
Yeah, that's a good word, authentically. That was on my mind. And there was such an interesting thing that Night One said. Like, he said basically to give him all these medications, right? And he says, I have to refer to my notes. We have to accelerate the program, break his grip on reality, and blur the lines.
You should rest.
No! No, we're close. I can feel it. The more I walk through his mind, the more I'm convinced he's hiding something. But we have to accelerate the program. Break his grip on reality. Blur the lines.
I can increase the dosage of medicine another 10%, but he might start hallucinating.
Do it. Then bring up the cyber field 30% and put me back inside.
It's dangerous. It could shatter his mind or kill him.
Then he dies.
And that blurring of the lines is such a great line, because that's the experience of people who have a psychotic disorder. The lines are blurred and they can't really figure out the difference between reality and what's not reality. The lines are blurred, and it's like this really great visual imagery where, I saw in my head where it's like you see a room, right? And as like one side is like really clear, it just sort of, becomes a little bit like cloudy and more hazy, and the other side is like not having like 20/20 vision. I just recently had an eye exam. Blur the lines. What a great way to like describe what that experience could actually be like too. And then I thought, okay, well, he's pumping him full of medications and he's ending up inducing a psychotic state. The first thing I thought about was cocaine.
Okay.
So cocaine, I'm not sure of other drugs because this is not my area of expertise, but too much cocaine works on the dopamine pathway. What cocaine does is it binds to the receptors, the dopamine receptors, and then a lot of the dopamine actually sits in the synapses. And that actually induces a psychotic episode, increases hallucinations and delusions. So whatever they were doing, it sounded like it was cocaine. However, that's a stimulant, and cocaine certainly works on the dopamine pathways in the reward center of our brain, to cause euphoria and these other pleasurable effects, which is why addiction is so strong with drugs like that. But yeah, just a random tidbit of thought that ran through my mind. Again, this is like, this whole episode is really strange for me. I just had like this plethora of flooding of all these like different like thoughts going on in my head. And then I thought, okay, well, here's night 1 and night 2 trying to recover memories. Now these are memories that like Commander Sinclair has no recollection of. He has like a 24-hour period of a complete blackout, right? And then I thought about like the research that's ongoing now in the world of psychiatry and psychology. There's ketamine that they're like using now for depression. There's LSD to help with anxiety and trauma, and like what microdosing does, and like the effects of microdosing with LSD and other psychedelics like psilocybin mushrooms, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's also obviously, marijuana, which now we found that there are like so many positive effects for. So I thought, like, there are a lot of people who can't recover pieces of their memories because of the experiences they had in their life that's induced a dissociative state, like trauma. I thought that the connection between what the Knights did to Commander Sinclair and the work that we do in psychology to help people like recover some of their memories, it kind of like lines up. And I'm just taking into context how like Babylon 5 was written some like 20 years ago, right? Mm. But it's, I mean, at the time, even 20 years ago, psychology still had its place, but 20 years later, it's far more advanced than it was some 20 years ago. But then JMS had the foresight to like really make these connections, like just to have like this fantastical idea of being able to even recover memories in some way, but through the use of drugs. But then also it's through the use of drugs, but it's also like there was some reprocessing involved in that whole like in the whole scene, in like the monologues that they had, the dialogue and the conversation. Like, what did you see? He's actually guiding him through this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there was like, the use of drugs involved, but he's actually guiding him through this. And I just thought that was like so fascinating that like, JMS had this foresight as he wrote this episode.
Even with like the, when you see the contraption they're using with the lasers in the eyes, right? Like I was thinking about like EMDR and all the different
things. Look, when Benson walked in that room and we saw what he saw through their lens, yeah. That was horrible. I was like, what is going on? And then I thought, oh my God, is this how shared psychotic disorder works?
He walked in, he did not know when he was going to walk in.
That was scary.
I don't care. All I want is... What the hell was that? What have you got going on in here anyway? Oh my God.
Terminate.
But yes, I thought that was really cool, and I love the visual of the light going into the eyes. Like, that was just really weird, and I just was like, what does that do? Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, like, if I had been on the forums back then, I would have been like, when you designed that, what was your idea behind, like, why are the eyes involved? Like, why is it not just drugs, being pumped into him or something, but like his eyes are open, like, Clockwork Orange kind of style. It's like, what is he?
It's strange because, when you think of the eye, right, you think of the occipital lobe, right? And like, you think of like how like...
Is that what we think of?
Yes. If you think of the eyes, you would typically think of the occipital lobe and like the visual component of your memory and how like your vision works, okay? That's what most people would think about. I'm sorry that you don't think about such things, okay? And then, we have like, vision is, processed through the occipital lobe, and then we have like the hippocampus that like helps, formulate memories along with all these other, structures. And then of course there's acetylcholine that's involved in memory as well. When there's too little acetylcholine, then that's when Alzheimer's and other memory impairments are impacted. But anyway, yes, the occipital lobe. So then I guess, like, okay, the theory could be, right, that if he's like going through the eyeballs, right, maybe it's a way of like, okay, let's see what he saw. Maybe it was just as simple as that, right? Yeah. Let's just see if I could see what he saw. Mm-hmm. It worked, didn't it?
It did. Absolutely, it worked. It worked better than anything else. I mean, I don't know if he's ever bothered to try to access that part of his memory, or whether he just accepted that he was never going to know, but they got in there.
Yeah, it was just this, between the drugs that like unblocked it, and then the reprocessing is really what it seems like it did.
And that's ultimately what all of this LSD work and mushroom work is specifically for trauma and PTSD. It works exceptionally well at helping people deal with difficult memories and things that they can't process without those states. I mean, that stuff has been...
And having like the severe levels of like really like anxiety, mm-hmm. And even, PTSD, symptoms of PTSD. The only thing that came to mind then was this. So, with hypnosis, right, they've shown that the process of hypnosis actually has caused people to develop false memories.
Yes, I remember reading all kinds of stuff about that.
Yep. So, it's kind of interesting because as much as drugs, you say, I'm not familiar with the literature, but like as much as drugs are implicated in like unlocking and unblocking certain traumatic memories and dissociative states that one may have been in, does it also have any side effects of creating false memories? So I don't know. That's something that I'd have to look into for my own curiosity. But anyway, I just thought that was like really fascinating that he was able to unlock memories for Sinclair. Now, going into this new territory, the memories that Sinclair had, Delenn was really quite busy. That midnight on the firing line, she was really quite busy. And, she looked so angry when her hood was unveiled. Was it anger?
That's an interesting question to pose.
I know who you are.
I'm your friend, Commander. Ambassador Delenn. Your friend.
No. I know you. I know you.
From, night one's perspective, and this was something that I didn't remember, but I noticed this time watching it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the groups that the knights represent, these people that just can't accept, the circumstances of the war and, that aliens are taking over. They're part of the same group of people, right, who don't want aliens involved in anything. But like, what struck me about their perspective was he, or Christopher, but them in general, seems so angry. Like when he says, and they surrendered, right? It's like they absolutely, positively cannot accept that the Minbari surrendered for reasons unknown. It's almost like it makes them angry. It's not just, you would think that for the most part people are like, yay, we almost got annihilated by these people, and they surrendered, and who cares, right? But these guys are so angry that they can't understand why that happened. Like, it fascinated me. Where does that anger come from? It's like, why can't you just be happy that you're alive, right? That they didn't destroy Earth, but they have to know. It's like they can't be satisfied to think that this great race just simply gave up. Like when he says that to Sinclair, there's such a level of deep anger when he says that. Oh yeah, and they just gave up. Like he doesn't believe it. Why don't you believe it? Why does it make you so angry to think that you do? Like there's some people who are just like, yay, we won, right? Like the people they consider Sinclair a hero. They're just like, the great Earth force, you know, prevailed, right? They see it that way. And then there's these other people who are just like, they can't accept that they didn't win, quote unquote, and it makes them angry. And I love that.
Commander Sinclair, for the last time, what happened at the Battle of the Line?
I was trying to ram the Minbari cruiser. And something passed in front of my eyes. I blacked out. The next thing I know, it's 24 hours later and the war...
The war was over! The Minbari had surrendered on the eve of their victory. They gave up. Just like that. And you expect us to believe that you slept through the whole thing? Your ship was off the screens for 24 hours. You didn't just black out. Your ship disappeared!
The screens malfunctioned. The hearing proved that. Why are you doing all this? The Minbari didn't win at the line. They surrendered.
Precisely my point! They surrendered! Why? I think they took one look at our defense and realized what it would cost them to invade Earth. Why risk their lives in a frontal attack when they could attack us from within? But they needed a fifth column, people like you. Look at Earth, Commander. Alien civilization, alien migration, aliens buying up real estate by the square mile, alien funding of Babylon 5. What they couldn't take by force, they're corrupting, inch by inch.
What does that have to do with me?
Nobody wants to die, especially not out there in the coldest space, so you surrendered. They took you aboard their ship, fixed you some milk and cookies, and asked you to work for them. Be their eyes, their ears, their voice. You agreed. You and God knows how many other people. And then they let you go.
You're insane.
But have you ever seen someone like fighting, like let's say like a bully or something, right? And they're fighting somebody and they want that person so badly to fight back, right? And the person doesn't, and it makes them angry. That's kind of how I see Night One. Like this group of people want so badly to fight and get fought back for it to be like a noble fight. And then when the person doesn't want to fight you or just engages in taking the hits, let's say, or whatever, they get angry. They get more angry the less you fight.
It's interesting because my perspective is that like it was too ambiguous for him. The whole situation was just too vague for him, and there are some people who just cannot sit with that ambiguity and like without, you know, and not have any questions answered because it just doesn't make sense, and that drives him mad.
Sure.
And there are people who will go to extreme lengths to, I can't say my THs, I am so sorry. They go to extreme lengths to try to get to some version of the truth that lines up with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when they can't get it, it's almost as if they lose their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And in this situation, actually, quite literally, it did happen to him. He lost his mind.
He did. He did.
Huh. Yeah, I don't really know what role Commander Sinclair is to play, but at this point, especially now, even at the end of the episode, you see Delenn's superior saying he must never know the truth or else he needs to be killed. Do you understand?
Mm.
What happened? What happened? What truth? What? Like, did they, like, you know, implant some Minbari DNA in him? Did they, like, what, you know, like... So that actually really piqued my interest. I think at this point I would have to say that I'm more invested in B5 now than I was in previous episodes. Now I'm actually invested in the story.
Out of curiosity, do you remember anything from your experience?
No. Sorry. Not a thing.
He must never know what happened. If he should find out, he must be killed. Do you understand, Delenn?
Yes.
I love Commander Sinclair because he has all these strengths that I don't have.
Right.
Last week I talked about how he has, like, the ability to sort of play a role, even if it's a lie, to serve a greater purpose. And he's okay with it. It's okay if he's misunderstood. It's okay if people see him as a jerk. It's okay if people, you know, all of a sudden think that he's this asshole, right? And he does that for something that he anticipates for a positive outcome in the future. This is the same. For even though he trusts Delenn and they've developed a very close relationship, he has enough foresight to, and like self-control, to not say a word about his experience. Because the bigger picture is, well, they erased his memory for a reason. And he keeps that in mind till the very end. He doesn't give in to that, even, no matter how much he trusts Delenn. And that's a very calculated man. Because he's always looking a few steps, you know, after, and he's looking at the bigger picture. And until that reason why, you know, his memory's been erased, I don't think he's ever going to tell her at this point.
I'm sure not. And that makes their relationship really interesting to me because they do have a very close relationship. She was able to sort of reach him in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And he came specifically to, like, thank her, even though he already knows very well that she's behind whatever is happening and that she's probably there to keep an eye on him. But they still have this relationship that they have to maintain.
Yeah, I don't know if it's one of those situations where it's like, you know, you keep your enemies close.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason why you would lie.
There you go.
It's because it's in anticipation of a favorable outcome. To be able to gain what you need to gain in that time. So yeah, their relationship is very interesting. As much as they share this very close friendship with each other at this point, and there's trust, there are also secrets.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's interesting because if the Minbari's goals lined up with Commander Sinclair's, then they would have obviously shared it. They would have had an alliance, right?
That is a very, very, very good point.
You know, Sinclair's vision for B5, I mean, for being even like the commander for B5, is for all the alien races to have a place where they feel safe, where they could share ideas and theories and expand their knowledge of the universe, really, and learn from each other. But if the Minbari's goal doesn't line up with that, then it must diverge really quite a bit for them to have Commander Sinclair killed.
Then why not just have won the war? Why not have finished? If their goals are, let's say,
I think the Minbari are just as calculated. They're trying to collect pieces of something, or they're manipulating something, or they're gathering something in the meantime. But I can't really see Commander Sinclair being manipulated either, because he's very...
Well, they didn't manipulate him. They wiped his memory.
No, not that. But for the long run, like for them to manipulate him along the way, or like at the end, right after they built all this trust with him, that they would want him to side with them.
Right.
I don't see Commander Sinclair budging, because he has a very strong personality, but he's committed to his own convictions. He believes in what he believes, and he doesn't waver. He doesn't waver.
I think they know that, which is why they would have to kill him.
So I don't really know.
What do you think about Delenn now? Like, has your opinion of her changed, or do you not have a problem with her being secretive?
I don't know what the goal is, but I'm still going to give her the value that I give her, because she emanates strength, and she has her own goals. I like that people have depth to their personality and their characters, and that they aren't impulsive, and there's a lot of self-control in what they do, especially for like things that require a very long con. I mean, we'll see. I mean, given what the Minbari culture values, I don't know what they ultimately want in the end. I mean, given what they value, I can't see that what they would want in the end is destruction. They value life. They value even afterlife. They value rebirth. Unless what they're planning on is a real rebirth of some sort, where it's like destruction and rebirth. I'm not sure. I am not sure. You know, are they trying to like get rid of everything so then they can start from scratch and rebuild everything? Are they, you know, what were those souls called in those glass balls?
Those were just the souls of all the people the Soul Hunter had gathered. Yeah, you had a theory about that too back then.
I wonder if that has a place. Are they planning on like... Because all these souls are set free, right? So is there a way for them then to have them reborn?
Well, they already think souls are reborn. remember you thought it had something to do with Dukhat and Sinclair. Remember? You said you thought that it had something to do with Dukhat's soul because the soul hunter was so obsessed with it and didn't get it, right? So you thought that it had something to do with Dukhat's soul and Sinclair. And
See, unless they believe,
the
you know what? Unless they believe that Sinclair is actually Dukhat. Unless they believe that he is Dukhat's soul. But then if, see, that's a situation where if Commander Sinclair knew about that now, I don't think he would believe it.
Probably not.
Is it simply because of that, that maybe that he'd need to be killed because then Dukhat has to go into another, you know, body?
Why would Dukhat be in a human?
More reasons to be able to unify, ways to be able to unify things. You know, you want to have people in different places, different races.
What did you think of Christopher? I have to ask because I love him so much. Like, what did you think of the aspects of the episode?
He has presence. He has a very strong presence. He was quite dramatic. I think, you know, it's very different for me to see that because I'm just sort of more used to like just watching TV, right? There's a very theatrical play like style to this, like to his acting. And when he speaks, like his words are accentuated and it's like magnified to give it emphasis to the importance and significance of what he's saying, or just to try to like convey a feel. So
the lighting and everything.
Yeah, the lighting.
Yeah. Very different from the usual episode.
Yeah, it's very different. I was very quiet while watching this. Usually I do have like some sort of reactions here and there, but it was very quiet as I was just taking in the energy of the scene. I have to say that I had, you know, Commander Sinclair's impact had more of an impact on me during those monologues. You know, as he was talking about his comrades dying, he had a tear in his eye. You only see one eye, and like he has like this tear in his eye. And I just think that he was such a phenomenal actor. He's just perfect for this role. The way he speaks, the way he conveys his emotions, he's someone who's like so in touch, despite the fact that he's, you know, like knowing that he struggles with like probably reality.
You talk about the war. You talk about Mitchell and the rest, but you didn't know them. They were my friends. I watched them die, one by one. For years afterwards, whenever I saw Minbari, I had to fight the urge to strangle them with my bare hands. All I could see was Mitchell and the rest. Dying. Dying.
Why?
Because we were outnumbered and outgunned. We never had a chance. You say we could have won, but you weren't there. You didn't see them. When I looked at those ships, I didn't just see my death. I saw the death of the whole damn human race.
Then why did they surrender?
I don't know. Maybe the universe blinked. Maybe God changed his mind. All I know is that we got a second chance.
The other piece that I really liked was, you know, as they were going through his memories, Christopher was trying to tell him that it was his fault that Mitchell died. He said, "You killed him." And even then, Sinclair was unwavering. He said, "I tried to save him," and like he just wouldn't listen. I can imagine so many people, especially with survivor's guilt, not being able to see how things really played out, because it would be colored by their emotions. And he doesn't waver in that too. And that's strength. He doesn't say, well, yeah, I should have done more. Because typically that would be a response of someone who's had survivor's guilt and who's seen, other people like die. And, that becomes a real component in someone's distress. But he actually sees reality for what it is, and it's a protective factor for him.
Why did you do it, Commander? Why did you betray us?
Mitchell's dead. This isn't real.
We fought for you. We fought beside you on the line. We swore we would all go down together. But you're alive. And we're dead. Because of you.
It's not true. I tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen. You never listen.
I like that he says you never listen.
Yeah.
Like you see this a lot in TV shows sometimes, like, where people try to get into someone's memory or whatever, and they always bring back someone who's died to try to guilt them, and then usually it works, like the person's like, oh, mother, I should have saved you kind of thing. I love that he already has resolved all of this.
Yeah, he has.
He's not someone who's so broken that you can just bring that dude into the picture and have him say, you got me killed. He's just like, I did not. You never listened to me.
In that whole conversation with Mitchell, he never used the words could, would, should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would have saved you if you listened. I could have saved you if I've done this. I should have saved you by risking myself or whatever. But he never uses any of those words.
Nope.
And he understood, I like that, those things are so objective for him. It's so black and white for him, and he knows exactly what his role was. Then there's no blurring of the lines there.
How is that for you? I feel that's something that you would struggle with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an average person with average emotions. I can't say that all of my, convictions are solidified yet. There are some things that I still kind of I ponder about, and I'm not really quite sure which side of the line I stand. It's kind of hard to do that, especially with so many differing thoughts out there, and knowing that there's no one clear answer either. When you think about things in your life, there's always going to be regrets, and those regrets turn into would, shoulds, and coulds. But staying in those moments a shorter time is progress, I think. Yeah, it is certainly progress. Going back to Sinclair, and he was in that whole monologue when he had that tear in his eye, Sinclair not only, talked about what it was like to see his comrades fall, but he says, I didn't just see my death. I saw the death of the whole human race. And he is so committed to that. And for someone who's committed to that bigger picture and having compassion for something having that level of compassion, I'm sure the Minbari values that resolve, or what would you even call that? That
he was going to ram them?
Well, yeah, he was,
right. But I mean, even the action of that, from a race of people that have a concept of war and an honor in a sense, that must have had an impact too. That this one lone ship is trying to...
Yeah. And...
even though to the scale you can't see in that episode, but those ships are he would have just bounced. Like, no, seriously, it doesn't. It's not a really good
scale to measure.
No, you get to see it later as the CGI develops, but those ships are enormous.
You know, as he said that, it was just like, wow, you know, the fact that he could actually see the whole human race as the idea of it perishing, he has so much compassion for. And yet we live in a world where there's so much selfishness, but selfishness for all the bad reasons, right? We live in a society where there's so much immediate gratification and poor impulse control, and how we want the best thing and everything, and we want to make our lives comfortable, even if it's at the expense of other people. We see that so often. Commander Sinclair is just built differently. The last piece I just want to mention is when night one, I guess it's Christopher, when as he's handcuffed and being taken off the ship, Sinclair tries to ask him, like, you know, some questions, and, you know, he doesn't remember anything. Oh my God, he just really, that poor dude in his quest for information, lost his own. He says, there's something in my head. It says maybe you're still inside. Maybe we're both still inside. It was so cryptic.
He tried. He's gone. Move him out. Commander?
Commander Sinclair. There's something in my head. It says maybe you're still inside. Maybe we're both still inside.
The other thing that made me, oh my God, how do I articulate this? I can't speak English. The other thing it did for me was it took me onto a different thought. Because I work with people with dementia, the thought I had was this. In my day-to-day interactions with, you know, residents with dementia at different stages, especially in like the middle to advanced stages, where some of them don't even know their names. You know, you always kind of wonder how much of themselves are still in there. How much of themselves, meaning the part of them that still has like some sort of memory that's intact. And I discovered that there is something that's still there, you know, and I have these interactions with them where it's like all of a sudden it's a good day and they can remember like a little bit of their past life, and for example, like how they, you know, enjoyed journaling their everyday life, and how they had a cat, and what their married life was, and they would tell me these like glimmer and images of like their life that they can articulate in that moment, and then they light up because they remember a fond memory that they had. The idea maybe that you're still inside, that no matter how impaired your memory is, there's still a part of you that even till the very end, maybe not like towards the very advanced stages of dementia, but there's something there where you can pull out a smile, or they even tap into their own memory and they laugh at something that they think of, you know? So this is just my work with, you know, people with dementia, and it's like, you know, that line just kind of hit a little, it hit very warmly for me, knowing that like this is the work I do, and being able to have these moments of joy with them. that knowing that even though the disease has advanced so far for them, that there's still a piece of them that's still inside. It's just a little something, you know, personal that I thought about my own day-to-day work. This is definitely an episode that has sucked me into wanting to figure out what this mystery is and like what they did to Commander Sinclair. No, actually why they did that to Commander Sinclair. What is the Minbari's role in all of this? That's very curious for me. Now I'm sucked in, officially.
You weren't before, but now the intrigue is real.
Now the intrigue is real. Before it was just these, you know, these scenes that made me think about things. It was how stimulating it was for me back then, you know, for the previous episodes, and you know, the character build and the interpersonal relationships. Those are what I liked. But now I'm sucked into the story even more so.
All right. That's
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to watching more of B5. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions you want me to address, or maybe my impressions, please let me know. I'll do the best I can to answer them. I'm not really quite sure if I'm, you know, hitting on like important things or if it's interesting enough, but this is kind of like where my thought processes are right now. As I continue to do this project, I hope that my thinking gets a little more deep, and that is really one of the main goals. It's really for my own self-discovery, as well as to just sort of open my perspective on things as well, and seeing how much of myself I actually learn along the way too, because there's always so much that you can learn of yourself. So thank you so much for watching, and I don't know, being very interested. I really appreciate it. I don't have any expectations for, you know, this journey or this project. I'm just doing it because Elaine has recommended B5 as a phenomenal show to expand your horizons. And I've never watched sci-fi before, other than a couple of like movies, but that's it, like Event Horizon.
Why would you, of all the movies?
That was it. That was one movie that my friend wanted to watch when we were like, I don't know, very young.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
You could cut that out if you want.
No, that's awful. I'm sorry. That's a terrible thing to experience.
It was...
I don't want to talk about it.
It was awful.
No, moving on.
And playing sci-fi video games like Dead Space
Again,
3.
Which you didn't finish. Well, yes, we finished it.
We did finish it. But I won't play that single player. There's no way. There's no way I will play Dead Space 1 and 2. I will not play that. Co-op was okay because Elaine would throw me into situations and it's okay. I would go and I could sort of feign being brave.
I think if anybody watches those videos that we made, they'll know you're not brave.
I need to learn how to... I need self-preservation, but mostly I need to learn how to aim. That's my problem.
Then let me go first.
I have no problem with that. You go first. Oh. Get in there.
Will you stop and let me go at my own pace?
Wow, okay, that's a door closing. God, I'm scared. Ah, that thing is big. I know they don't give you a lot of ammo either, so, but you know.
And remember, if there's a dead guy in the ground, shoot him first, because he's probably not dead.
You gotta double tap.
Yes, you have to triple tap these guys.
Double tap that guy.
Yeah.
Ah, no, don't, you can't double tap the guy.
Stop getting so close!
Oh, it's coming!
You are fired. You are so fired.
I stomped on him.
Am I going first or are you going first? We have got to have a system here! A system! He didn't assist! Oh my
I was gonna go and stomp on him, you know?
No, you gotta shoot him. There are 3. I hate you.
God, there's blood all over the place.
That's because we were shooting things because you went.
It was already here. It was already here. Look at the handprints. That wasn't me. But anyway, once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. So after you left, there was something that I realized I didn't talk about. So after we watched this episode, you had mentioned how Commander Sinclair was so angry, especially when he was talking about the Earth Minbari War, and that you felt like this was like the first time that you saw him like that upset. And then the thing that I was realizing was this, that Commander Sinclair had been really angry all throughout the series, as if he had been taking a lot of things really personally, especially when it came to Tular. He was so angry at Tular, even to the point of like instigating him. Then I realized something else. So Tular was someone who ended up destroying his whole people. He wiped out his whole entire race inadvertently because he wanted to keep out all these terrorists and not have his people killed. And I think that Commander Sinclair has been taking all of this really personally, and that his anger is a displacement of that anger from his personal experiences. He just have seemed angry throughout, and anything that really just triggers any wrongdoing, any situation where people aren't taken care of, he gets really upset by that. So I've seen a lot of displacement of anger for him, and that he just really takes things personally. All right, that's it. That's all I wanted to add.